the Harmony Nexus, gleamed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Minho pressed his hand against the observation window and watched ships from 100 different worlds dock at the massive station. Some vessels were elegant and silver, others looked like floating gardens, and a few resembled nothing he could describe. This was his 3rd year attending the Partnership Summit, but the sight still took his breath away. "Stop daydreaming and help me with these data tablets," Hana called from across the preparation room. His boss was already dressed in formal diplomatic robes, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She always looked serious, but today she seemed especially focused. Minho turned from the window and picked up the stack of tablets. Each one contained information about different alien species attending the summit. He had spent weeks studying them, learning about their cultures, their needs, and what they hoped to gain from partnerships. "Remember," Hana said as she adjusted her collar, "partnerships formed here can change the course of our planet's future. Earth is still new to the galactic community. We need allies." "I know," Minho replied. He did know. 3 years ago, humanity had barely understood that aliens existed. Now they were trading technology, sharing knowledge, and building friendships across the stars. The Partnership Summit made it all possible. Taiho burst into the room with his usual energy. "The opening ceremony is starting in 10 minutes. Have you seen the lumens? They're like walking crystals, and the hydrals brought water sculptures that float in the air." Minho smiled at his friend's excitement. Taiho had only attended the summit once before, and he still got thrilled by everything. Minho envied that enthusiasm sometimes. After 3 years of diplomatic work, he had started to see the patterns, the politics, the careful dancing around difficult topics. The main hall was enormous, with a domed ceiling that displayed a perfect image of the stars outside. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds filled the space. Minho saw the crystalline lumens that Taiho mentioned, their bodies catching and reflecting light in rainbow patterns. The hydrals floated in special water spheres, their tentacles moving in graceful waves. Furry creatures, scaled beings, entities made of living metal. The diversity was stunning. The ceremony began with speeches from the summit coordinator, an elderly Terravex whose stone-like body was covered in glowing symbols. Minho half listened while scanning the crowd. He was looking for potential partners for Earth, species that might benefit from human technology or culture. Then she entered. The crowd seemed to part without anyone actually moving. Whispers spread like ripples across water. Minho followed the gazes and saw her walking alone down the central path. She was tall and impossibly graceful, with pale skin that seemed to glow slightly in the hall's light. Her hair was long and dark, flowing behind her like a shadow. She wore robes of deep purple and black, formal and elegant. But it was her eyes that caught Minho's attention, ancient eyes that had seen too much, filled with a carefully controlled sadness. "That's Queen Valera," Hana whispered beside him. Her voice carried an edge of warning. "Who?" Minho asked. "The Netherian Queen, the last of their royal line." Hana paused. "Stay away from her, Minho. The Netherians are trouble." Minho wanted to ask more, but the ceremony was continuing. He watched as Queen Valera took her place at the edge of the gathering, standing alone while every other delegation clustered in friendly groups. She held her head high, her expression perfectly neutral, but Minho noticed how her hands were clasped tightly together. The partnership announcements began. The lumens paired with the Terravex, their species complementing each other perfectly. The hydrals found partners among the atmospheric skylords. Even the cautious Minorex, who rarely trusted anyone, formed a bond with a peaceful agricultural species. One by one, species stepped forward, made their pledges, and sealed their partnerships with traditional ceremonies. Earth's delegation formed 3 partnerships that day. Hana herself partnered with a Terravex counselor, securing mining rights and technology exchanges. Taiho practically bounced with joy when he was selected to partner with a young Lumen scientist. Minho felt happy for them, but he found his attention drifting. Queen Valera had not moved from her position at the edge of the hall. No one approached her. No one even looked at her directly. It was as if she was invisible, except Minho could see her clearly. He saw the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes flickered hopefully whenever someone seemed to move in her direction, and the disappointment when they turned away. Hours passed. The hall began to empty as new partnerships moved to private rooms to discuss details of their agreements. Minho stayed, pretending to review notes on his tablet. He watched Queen Valera remain standing, alone, as the crowd thinned around her. Finally, she moved. Her footsteps were silent as she walked toward the exit. Her posture was still perfect, her face still calm, but Minho saw something crack in her expression for just a moment. It was the look of someone who had hoped despite knowing better, and had been disappointed again. Taiho appeared at Minho's elbow. "Why are you still here? Everyone's going to the celebration dinners." "Who are the Netherians?" Minho asked, still watching the doorway where Queen Valera had disappeared. Taiho's cheerful expression faded. "You don't know? They're the vampire species." "Vampires. Well, not exactly like the old Earth stories, but close enough. They feed on energy from other living beings. About 200 years ago, they had a huge empire and got into a massive war. Things got brutal. They lost. Their empire collapsed, and now there's almost none of them left." Taiho shook his head. "Nobody trusts them. Nobody wants anything to do with them." "But that was 200 years ago," Minho said. "Try telling that to the species who fought them. Some of those beings are still alive, Minho. They remember." Taiho grabbed his arm. "Come on, let's go eat. You're thinking too hard." Minho let himself be pulled toward the dining halls, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept seeing Queen Valera's face, that moment when her mask slipped. He had seen loneliness before, but never anything like that. It was the loneliness of someone who had stood alone not just for days or months, but for years, maybe decades. That night, Minho couldn't sleep. He lay in his assigned quarters and stared at the ceiling. The station's artificial gravity made everything feel slightly wrong, but that wasn't what kept him awake. He kept thinking about partnerships. The whole point of the summit was that different species could help each other, could bridge their differences and build something better together. But it only worked if people were willing to try, if people were willing to look past fear and old grudges. Humanity knew about old grudges. Earth's history was full of wars and hatred between groups who eventually learned to live together. It had taken time and effort, and people brave enough to reach across divides. Minho sat up and activated his tablet. He started searching for information about Netherians, about Queen Valera, about what had really happened 200 years ago. He read until dawn started to brighten the stars outside his window, and with each file he read, his resolve grew stronger. By morning, Minho had made his decision. He knew Hana would be furious. He knew other humans might think he was crazy. He knew the other species would talk, but he also knew that everyone deserved a chance, even a vampire queen who stood alone. The files about the Netherians painted a complicated picture. Minho rubbed his tired eyes and scrolled through another document. Most of the information came from species that had fought against them, so he had to read carefully and look for facts beneath the angry words. The Netherians fed on bioelectric energy. Every living thing produced it naturally, and for most beings, sharing a small amount caused no harm at all. It was like donating blood. The body replaced what was given quickly. The Netherians had lived peacefully for thousands of years, trading their advanced medical knowledge for willing energy donations. Then the war happened. A territorial dispute escalated, alliances formed, and suddenly the Netherians were fighting for survival against a coalition of angry species. When they ran out of willing donors, desperate Netherian soldiers began taking energy by force from enemy prisoners. The stories from that time were ugly. People died. Others were left weak and sick. The Netherians lost. Their empire was broken apart. Their population, once numbering in the billions, was scattered across the galaxy. Now only about 40,000 remained, living in small, isolated groups, struggling to survive because no one would trade with them. And Queen Valera was the last of their royal bloodline, trying desperately to save what remained of her people. Minho closed the files and leaned back. His quarters were small and quiet. Outside the window, the stars slowly turned as the station rotated. He thought about the war, about desperate people doing terrible things to survive. He thought about how Earth's own history was full of similar stories. He also thought about the medical technology files he had found. The Netherians were masters of genetics and biology. They could cure diseases that baffled other species. They could extend lifespans, repair genetic damage, even regrow lost limbs. Earth could use that knowledge. Millions of humans could benefit. But more than that, Minho thought it was simply the right thing to do. When morning came properly, Minho cleaned up and dressed in his formal clothes. He had a meeting scheduled with Hana to discuss Earth's new partnerships. He decided to wait until after that meeting to tell her his plan. She would need time to prepare. The meeting went well. Hana was pleased with the 3 partnerships Earth had secured. She talked excitedly about the technology exchanges and cultural programs they could start. Taiho bounced in his chair, already making plans to visit the Lumen homeworld. "This has been our best summit yet," Hana said with satisfaction. "Earth's reputation in the galactic community just improved significantly." Minho took a breath. "I want to request a partnership." "Oh?" Hana looked up with interest. "With which species? I thought you were still deciding." "With Queen Valera of the Netherians." The room went silent. Taiho stopped bouncing. Hana's face went completely blank for 3 full seconds before she spoke. "No. I've researched them thoroughly," Minho said calmly. "Their reputation is worse than their reality. The war was 2 centuries ago, and the current generation has never harmed anyone. They're peaceful and desperate for any kind of alliance." "No," Hana repeated, her voice harder. "Minho, do you understand what you're suggesting? The Netherians are feared across the galaxy. Partnering with them could damage all of Earth's other relationships. Or it could show that humans judge people by who they are now, not what their ancestors did centuries ago." Hana stood up. "This is not your decision to make alone. A partnership with the Netherians would require approval from Earth's Council, extensive safety reviews, public relations planning." "The partnership request is mine to make," Minho interrupted quietly. "I've checked the rules. Individual diplomats can volunteer for partnerships without pre-approval. You can refuse to support it, but you can't stop me from asking." Taiho was staring at him with wide eyes. "Minho, are you serious? You'd let a vampire feed on you?" "They feed on bioelectric energy, not blood, and it's harmless when done with consent." Minho looked at Hana. "I'm going to submit the request." Hana's jaw tightened. "If you do this, I can't protect you from the consequences." "I know. The other species will think humans are reckless or naive. Maybe, or maybe they'll respect us for it." Hana stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed and sat down heavily. "Why, Minho? Really why? Is this some hero complex? Do you want to be famous for doing something shocking?" Minho shook his head. "I watched her yesterday. She stood alone for hours while everyone else found partners. Nobody even looked at her. And she's a queen, carrying the weight of an entire dying species, with no one willing to help." He paused. "We're supposed to be here to build bridges. How can we ignore someone who needs a bridge most?" Taiho spoke quietly. "He has a point. Whose side are you on? Hana snapped. Minho's, Taiho said simply. If he's brave enough to do this, I'll support him. That's what friends do. Hana closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. This is going to be a nightmare, but fine, submit your request. I'll prepare damage control plans. Thank you, Minho said. Don't thank me yet. You still have to convince Queen Valera to accept. She might refuse. Minho hadn't considered that possibility. Why would she refuse? Because she's not stupid. She knows accepting a human partner could bring trouble to both of you. She might decide it's not worth the risk. That afternoon, Minho stood outside Queen Valera's private chambers, his hand raised to knock. His heart was beating fast. The formal request had been submitted an hour ago through official channels, and her response had been immediate. I will see the human diplomat in private. He knocked. The door opened silently. The room beyond was dimly lit, which surprised Minho. He had expected something dark and dramatic based on all the vampire stories. Instead, the space was simple and elegant. Soft purple lights glowed along the walls. A few pieces of beautiful furniture were arranged carefully. Large windows showed the stars outside. Queen Valera stood by one of the windows. Up close, she was even more striking than she had been in the hall. Her eyes were a deep violet color, and they studied Minho with an intensity that made him want to look away. You are Minho of Earth, she said. Her voice was smooth and controlled, with an accent he couldn't place. Yes, Your Majesty. Do not call me that. Valera is sufficient. She moved away from the window, circling around him slowly. Why? Why what? Why would you volunteer to partner with me? I have been attending these summits for 12 years. No one has ever volunteered before. So why now? Why you? Her eyes narrowed. What does Earth want from the Netherians? Nothing, Minho said honestly. The request was my personal decision. My government didn't ask me to do this. Then you are a fool, seeking glory, perhaps? You want to be known as the brave human who partnered with the vampire queen? No, I just thought it was unfair that everyone had a partner except you. Valera stopped moving. She studied his face carefully. You pity me. I wouldn't say pity exactly. Pity is worse than fear, Valera said sharply. I do not need your sympathy, human. Minho felt his own frustration rising. Fine. You want the real reason? Yes. I feel bad that your entire species is dying out because other people can't let go of old grudges. Yes, I think it's wrong that you're being punished for something that happened 200 years ago. And yes, I believe humanity should be better than that. He met her violet eyes directly. But mostly, I think everyone deserves a chance, including you. Valera was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It was a soft, bitter sound. You have no idea what you are offering. A partnership is not a simple thing. You would need to share your energy with me once each week. You would be bound to support my interests publicly. You would face judgment and possibly danger from those who hate my people. I know, Minho said. I read the partnership requirements. Reading and experiencing are different things. Valera moved closer. When I feed, there is a connection. You will feel my presence in your mind. You will see fragments of my memories. It is intimate in ways you cannot imagine. Minho swallowed but held his ground. I accept those terms. Why do you trust me not to take too much? I could drain you dry before anyone could stop me. But you won't. How do you know? Because if you were that kind of person, you wouldn't be warning me right now. Valera stared at him. Something shifted in her expression, the hard shell cracking just slightly. You are either the bravest human I have met or the most foolish. Can't I be both? Another small laugh. Perhaps. She turned away. I accept your partnership, Minho of Earth. We will formalize it tomorrow at the public ceremony. But know this, I expect you to regret this decision very soon. Maybe, Minho said, but I'm still going to do it. As he left her chambers, Minho's hands were shaking slightly. What had he just agreed to? But beneath the nervousness was something else, a feeling that he had just done something important, something that mattered. Tomorrow, the entire galactic community would learn that a human had partnered with the vampire queen. Minho had no idea what would happen next. But he was going to face it standing beside Valera, and that felt right. The announcement ceremony was held in the same grand hall where the summit had begun. Minho stood on the raised platform wearing his best diplomatic uniform. His palms were sweating. Below them, thousands of beings watched with undisguised curiosity. The whispers had been spreading since dawn. A human was partnering with the Netherian queen. Valera stood beside him, tall and composed in flowing dark robes. She showed no sign of nervousness, but Minho noticed her hands were clasped tightly together again. That small detail made him feel slightly better. At least he wasn't the only one feeling pressure. The summit coordinator raised his stone arms for silence. We gather to witness a partnership between Minho of Earth and Queen Valera of the Netherian people. Let all present bear witness to this bond. They spoke the traditional words. Minho's voice stayed steady, though his heart raced. Valera's voice was clear and formal. When they finished, they pressed their palms together in the universal gesture of partnership. The hall erupted in mixed reactions, some polite applause, many shocked murmurs, a few angry shouts that were quickly quieted. As they left the platform, Minho felt hundreds of eyes following them. He heard fragments of conversations. Humans really are reckless. Give them credit for courage. He'll regret this within a month. Perhaps this is their way. Remember, they're a young species. Back in the preparation room, Hana was waiting with Taiho and several other Earth diplomats. Her expression was carefully neutral. Well, she said, it's done. You're now officially partnered with the most controversial being at this summit. How bad is it? Minho asked. 3 species have requested formal meetings to express their concerns. 2 others have sent supportive messages. Earth's council is demanding a full report. Hana sighed. But it's not a complete disaster. Some beings are actually impressed. Taiho grinned and slapped Minho's shoulder. I knew you could do it. You should have seen the faces in the crowd. Nobody expected this. A Netherian appeared in the doorway, an elderly male with the same pale features as Valera but with silver hair. He bowed slightly. Minho of Earth, Queen Valera requests your presence. It is time for the first energy sharing. Minho's stomach tightened. This was the part he had been both anticipating and dreading. Now, the bond should be established quickly, the elderly Netherian explained. I am Do-hyun, advisor to the Queen. I will guide you through the process. Minho followed Do-hyun through quiet corridors to Valera's chambers. The Queen was waiting in a room with comfortable cushions arranged on the floor. She gestured for Minho to sit across from her. You may leave us, Do-hyun, she said. Your Majesty, protocol suggests... I know what protocol suggests. Leave us. The advisor bowed and departed. Minho and Valera sat in silence for a moment. Are you afraid? Valera asked. A little, Minho admitted. Good. That means you understand what is happening. She reached out her hands, palms up. Give me your hands. Minho placed his hands in hers. Her skin was cool and impossibly smooth. Close your eyes, Valera instructed. Breathe slowly. This will feel strange, but do not panic. I will only take what I need, nothing more. Minho closed his eyes. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then he felt it, a gentle pulling sensation. Like water draining slowly from a cup. It didn't hurt, but it felt odd, foreign. His skin tingled where they touched. Then came the connection. Images flashed through Minho's mind. He saw a city at twilight, beautiful towers of dark stone reaching toward a purple sky. He heard music, haunting and lovely. He felt emotions that weren't his own, crushing loneliness, desperate hope, bone-deep exhaustion. He saw Valira as a young queen, surrounded by her people before the war. He saw her watching her cities burn. He saw her standing alone at summit after summit, year after year, being rejected over and over. The sadness was overwhelming. "Breathe." Valira's voice cut through the visions. "Stay with me, Minho." He focused on breathing. Slowly, the images faded. The pulling sensation stopped. He opened his eyes. Valira had released his hands and sat back. There was color in her cheeks that hadn't been there before, a subtle warmth to her skin. She looked more alive. "Are you well?" she asked. "I saw things," Minho said quietly. "Your memories?" "That is normal for the first sharing. The connection is strongest then. Future feedings will be less intense." She studied him. "What did you see?" "Your city, your people, the loneliness." Minho met her eyes. "I'm sorry for what happened to you." Valira's expression hardened. "I do not want your pity." "It's not pity. It's understanding." Minho flexed his hands. They felt slightly weak, but not painfully so. "Is that all you took?" "Yes. I told you I would only take what I needed." "You could have taken more." "I could have taken everything and left you unconscious," Valira said bluntly. "But I am not a monster, despite what the galaxy thinks." Over the following days, Minho learned more about Valira and her people. They met regularly to fulfill their partnership duties, attending diplomatic functions together, discussing cultural exchanges, working on proposals to help the scattered Netherian communities. Valira was brilliant. Her mind was sharp and quick, easily navigating complex political situations. She spoke 7 languages fluently. She had studied art, philosophy, and science for over 2 centuries. Talking with her was like talking with a living library. But she was also deeply guarded. She kept Minho at arm's length emotionally, never fully relaxing around him. Every conversation felt like a careful negotiation. One evening, she invited him to her chambers to share Netherian music. She played recordings of their traditional songs, wordless melodies that seemed to reach directly into the heart. The music was beautiful and sad, full of longing for something lost. "Your people were artists," Minho said when the music ended. "We were many things, artists, philosophers, healers, but that is not what the galaxy remembers." Valira's voice was bitter. "They remember only the war, the violence, the desperate soldiers who took energy by force." "Tell me about before the war," Minho said. "Tell me what your people were really like." Valira looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I want to understand, and because those memories deserve to be shared, not locked away." For the first time, Valira truly talked to him. She described the Netherian culture, their love of twilight, their philosophical debates that could last for days, their tradition of memory songs where families would sing their histories. She told him about the great libraries, the healing temples, the art galleries filled with works created over millennia. She spoke until late into the night, and Minho listened to every word. A week into their partnership, a crisis arrived. Taiho burst into Minho's quarters early one morning. "There's a Netherian refugee ship requesting permission to dock at the station," Taiho said urgently. 3 species have already denied them. The station coordinator is deciding whether to deny them too. Minho was up immediately. "How many refugees?" "About 200. Families mostly. They've been traveling for months looking for somewhere to settle." "Where's Valira?" "Already in the council chamber, demanding they be allowed to dock." Minho ran. He found the council chamber crowded with representatives from multiple species. Valira stood in the center, her violet eyes blazing with barely controlled anger. "These are civilians," she was saying. Families with children. They have done nothing wrong. They simply need supplies and rest. They are Netherians, a reptilian delegate hissed. We do not allow your kind here. The station is neutral territory, Valira shot back. You cannot deny them basic humanitarian aid. We can, and we will. We have no obligation to help your people. Minho pushed through the crowd. Then Earth will take responsibility for them. The room went silent. Valira turned to stare at him. Minho? Hana's warning voice came from the side. Think carefully. I have thought, Minho said clearly. As Valira's partner, I have the right to advocate for Netherian interests. These refugees need help. Earth will sponsor their docking, provide supplies, and assist them in finding settlement. The reptilian delegate's eyes narrowed. You would take responsibility for 200 vampires? I would take responsibility for 200 people who need help, Minho corrected. That's what partnerships mean. That's what the summit is supposed to be about. The debate raged for another hour, but Minho's declaration had shifted the balance. Other species began to reconsider. Finally, the station coordinator granted docking permission, with Earth taking official responsibility for the refugees. When it was over, Valira approached Minho in the empty hallway outside the chamber. You did not have to do that, she said quietly. Yes, I did. That's what partners do. You made enemies today. The reptilian delegation will not forget this. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before being cruel to refugees. Minho smiled tiredly. Are you okay? Valira was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and gently touched Minho's shoulder, the first time she had initiated physical contact outside of energy sharing. I have not had anyone stand beside me like that in a very long time, she said softly. Thank you. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a wall coming down between them. You're welcome, Minho said. As they walked back to their quarters together, Minho realized something had changed. Valira was no longer just his partnership obligation. She was becoming his friend. And that made everything they were doing feel even more important. The refugee ship docked 2 days later. Minho stood with Valira at the airlock as the Netherians came aboard the station. They looked tired and thin, their pale skin even paler than usual. Children clung to their parents' hands. Elderly Netherians moved slowly, weakened from months of inadequate energy feeding. Valira greeted each family personally. She spoke to them in their own language, her voice gentle in a way Minho had never heard before. Some of the refugees cried when they saw her. Others simply touched her hands in gratitude. I did not know our queen still lived, one old woman whispered. We thought we were alone. You are not alone, Valira said firmly. Not anymore. Earth's delegation provided food, medical care, and temporary shelter. Taiho organized a team to help the refugee children, playing games with them and teaching them basic galactic common language. The children were shy at first, but soon they were laughing, a sound that made Valira's eyes shine with tears. She quickly blinked away. But not everyone was happy about the refugees. Over the next week, Minho noticed increasing hostility from certain delegations. Representatives who had been polite before now openly avoided him. Meetings were canceled without explanation. Some species even filed formal complaints about Earth's decision to sponsor Netherian refugees. Hana called an emergency meeting with the Earth delegation. The political pressure is increasing, she said, spreading reports across the table. 5 species have threatened to reduce trade with Earth if we continue supporting the Netherians. The council back home is getting nervous. Let them be nervous, Minho said. We made the right choice. Right and smart are not always the same thing. Hana looked tired. I've been fighting to keep your partnership recognized, Minho. But some people on Earth think we should cut our losses. They want me to end the partnership. They want you to be more careful. Stop making waves. Let the Netherian issue fade quietly. I can't do that. I know, Hana sighed. Which is why I'm still fighting for you. But be aware, you're walking on very thin ice. The ice cracked completely at the next diplomatic reception. The reception was a formal event celebrating the summit's closing week. Representatives from every species gathered in the grand hall, dressed in their finest clothes. Minho wore Earth's formal uniform. Valira wore a stunning gown of deep purple that seemed to shimmer in the light. They entered together, and the room's conversations paused briefly before resuming. Minho felt the weight of stares, but ignored them. He and Valira found a quiet corner and talked about the refugee situation. They had found a small colony willing to accept some of the families, which was progress. Then Minho noticed movement. A tall being with scaled skin and burning orange eyes was moving toward them. Minho recognized him, Counselor Rask, representative of the Vathini people. The Vathini had lost heavily in the war with the Netherians 2 centuries ago. Queen Valira, Rask said, his voice like grinding stones. How nice to see you pretending to be civilized. Valira's expression remained calm. Counselor Rask, I hope you are well. I would be better if I did not have to share air with murderers. Rask's eyes shifted to Minho. And I am disappointed in humanity. I thought your species had more sense than to ally with monsters. That's enough, Minho said firmly. Is it? Tell me, human. Do you know how many Vathini died in the war? 30 million. 30 million of my people killed or drained dry by Netherian soldiers. That was 200 years ago, Minho said. Valira wasn't even alive then. But she carries the guilt of her species. Rask moved closer, looming over them. The Netherians never apologized, never made reparations. They simply scattered and expected us to forget. Valira's voice was ice. We scattered because your coalition hunted us like animals. We apologized repeatedly and were ignored. We offered reparations and were refused because you wanted us dead, not reconciled. You should be dead, Rask snarled. Every last one of you. Counselor, a security officer appeared. Please maintain appropriate conduct. Rask sneered but stepped back. Watch yourself, human. Your vampire queen will only bring you suffering. He walked away. Minho realized his hands were clenched into fists. Breathe, Valira said quietly. He wants a reaction. Do not give him one. He threatened you. He has threatened me for 12 years. I am used to it. But Minho heard the strain in her voice. They decided to leave the reception early. As they walked toward the exit, Minho kept glancing around, watching for trouble. His instincts were right. It happened fast. 3 beings moved out of the crowd, blocking their path. Minho recognized one, a Vathini soldier from Rask's delegation. The soldier's hand reached for something at his belt. Valira, move! Minho shouted. The soldier pulled out a plasma cutter, a tool that could slice through metal. He lunged toward Valira with murder in his eyes. Minho didn't think. He threw himself between them. The plasma cutter's beam caught him across the chest. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and overwhelming. He heard Valira scream his name. Then he was falling and everything went dark. When Minho woke, he was in a medical bay. Every breath hurt. His chest was wrapped in bandages that glowed with healing technology. Hana sat beside his bed, her face pale. You're an idiot, she said, but her voice was shaking. The stupidest, bravest idiot I've ever known. Valira? Minho's voice came out as a croak. She's fine. You saved her life. Hana squeezed his hand. The attacker has been arrested. His entire delegation has been expelled from the summit. There's a huge investigation. Good. Minho, Earth's council is furious. You nearly died defending an alien queen. Some people think you went too far. Some people are wrong, Minho said. Then he noticed someone else in the room. Valera stood in the shadows near the door, her face stricken. Hana saw his gaze. "I'll give you two some privacy." She left quietly. Valera approached the bed slowly. She looked like she had been crying, which shocked Minho. He had never seen her cry before. "You should not have done that," she said. "Saved your life? Pretty sure I should have." "You almost died." "But I didn't." Valera sat down heavily in the chair Hana had vacated. "I have lived for 243 years. I have survived a war, the collapse of my civilization, and decades of isolation. I can handle threats and attacks," her voice broke, "but I cannot handle watching someone die for me. I'm not dead. You could have been." She looked at him with those ancient violet eyes. "Why, Minho? Why would you risk your life for me?" "Because that's what partners do," Minho said simply. "Because you matter. Because your life has value, no matter what people like Rask think. I am not worth dying for." "Yes, you are." Valera was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked Minho even more than her tears. She reached out and gently touched his face, her cool fingers soft against his skin. "When I fed from you the first time, I saw your memories too," she said quietly. "I saw a human child who watched his grandfather die because medicine came too late to his village. I saw a young man who became a diplomat because he wanted to help people, to make sure others didn't suffer like he did." She smiled sadly. "You have always been this person, this brave, foolish, good person." Minho felt his own eyes burning. "You saw that? The connection goes both ways. I did not tell you because I did not want you to know how much I have seen of your heart." Valera's hand moved to rest over his bandaged chest, careful of his injuries. "You are in danger because of me. The partnership has brought you nothing but trouble. I should release you from our bond." "No." "Minho?" "No," he repeated firmly. "We're in this together. That's what you taught me when you showed me your memories, your pain, your people's history. We don't run when things get hard. We stand together." "This will only get harder." "Then we'll face it together." Valera looked at him for a long time. Then, slowly, she leaned down and pressed her forehead against his, a Netherian gesture of deep respect and affection. "You are the most stubborn human I have ever met," she whispered. "Good thing you're stuck with me then." She laughed, a real laugh this time, not bitter or sad. "Yes, I suppose it is." When she pulled back, something had fundamentally changed between them. The walls were gone. The careful distance had disappeared. They had become something more than partners, more than friends. They had become truly bonded. Over the next few days, as Minho recovered, news of the attack spread through the galactic community. The response surprised everyone. Several species that had been neutral before now spoke out against the violence. 2 delegations publicly condemned Rask's hatred. Even some former enemies of the Netherians admitted that attempting to murder a queen was unacceptable. Taiho visited every day, bringing news and making Minho laugh with stories about the refugee children. Dohyun came to thank Minho personally, his old eyes bright with gratitude. Even Hana admitted that the attack had shifted public opinion in an unexpected way. People who didn't care about the Netherians before are now asking questions, she explained. They're reading about the war, learning the full history. Some are even sympathetic. Because Minho almost died for one of them, Taiho added. It made people think. Minho looked at Valera, who sat quietly in the corner as always. Was it worth it? Valera met his eyes. Ask me again in a year. But Minho could see it in her face. The hope that had been dead for decades was alive again. Fragile and new, but real. And that made everything worth it. The partnership summit ended 3 weeks after the attack. Most delegations departed for their homeworlds, taking their new partnerships and agreements with them. Minho was well enough to travel, though his chest still ached when he moved too quickly. The doctor said he had been lucky. The plasma cutter had missed his heart by centimeters. Minho stood in the observation room watching ships depart when Hana found him. "The council has made their decision," she said without preamble, "about you and Valera." Minho's stomach tightened. "And? They want to formalize Earth's relationship with the Netherians. They're offering you a new position, permanent liaison between humanity and the Netherian people." Hana's expression was complicated. "You did it, Minho. You actually changed their minds. They're not angry." "Oh, they're angry about the risks you took. But they can't argue with results. After the attack, public sentiment across the galaxy shifted. Species are reconsidering their stance on the Netherians. Trade restrictions are being discussed. Even the possibility of aid programs." Hana shook her head in disbelief. One stubborn diplomat and his vampire queen partner might have just saved an entire species from extinction. Minho felt dizzy. "What does Valera think?" "Why don't you ask her? She's been waiting in your quarters for the last hour." He found Valera standing by his window, looking out at the stars. She turned when he entered, and he was struck again by how beautiful she was. Not in a human way, but in her own unique manner. Elegant and ancient and sad and hopeful all at once. "Hana told me about Earth's offer," Valera said. "Did Doyun tell you about the Galactic Council's decision?" "No." "What decision?" "The Council voted this morning. The Netherians are being granted protected species status. Not full restoration of rights yet, but it's a beginning. 3 species have officially offered limited partnerships with Netherian communities." Minho smiled. "And there's more. The Lumens are interested in your medical technology. The Terravex want to discuss cultural exchanges." Valera's hand went to her mouth. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. When she did, her voice was thick with emotion. 3 partnerships? In addition to ours? 4, actually. The Hydrals just sent their request an hour ago. Valera sat down suddenly, as if her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. "I have been trying for 12 years. 12 years of standing alone, being rejected, watching my people slowly die out, and now things are changing," Minho finished. He sat beside her. "Because you never gave up. Because you kept coming to these summits even when it seemed hopeless." "No," Valera said firmly. "Because one human was brave enough to see past the fear. Because you volunteered when no one else would." She looked at him with those violet eyes. "You saved my people, Minho. We're not saved yet, but we have a chance now." "We," Valera repeated softly. "You keep saying we. Well, I am your partner. And apparently now I'm your permanent liaison." Minho paused. "If you want me to be. I know this was supposed to be temporary, 1 galactic year. You can choose someone else if you prefer." Valera was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Not for feeding, just to hold it. "I want you to stay," she said quietly. "I want you to help me rebuild what was lost. I want—" She struggled with the words. "I want you beside me. Not as an obligation. Not as a political necessity. But because I have come to value you more than I can express." Minho squeezed her hand. "I want to stay too." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the ships outside continue their departures. Finally, Valera spoke again. "Where will we start?" "The refugees on the station need long-term placement. We should work on that first." Minho thought about what he had learned over the past weeks. "Then we can start reaching out to other scattered Netherian communities. Let them know they're not alone anymore. That will take years. Good thing Netherians live a long time." Minho said with a smile. You can put up with me for a few years, can't you? Valera laughed. I suppose I have no choice now. 6 months later, Minho stood on a planet he had never visited before. The sky was a deep purple color, streaked with pink clouds. 2 moons hung on the horizon. The air smelled of flowers he couldn't name. Before him stretched the beginnings of a new colony. Prefabricated buildings from 5 different species were being assembled. Netherian refugees worked alongside human engineers, lumen technicians, and even a few Terravex builders. Children ran between the construction sites, laughing and playing. It was the first new Netherian settlement in 200 years. Taiho appeared at Minho's elbow, carrying a data tablet. The water purification system is online. The hydrils did amazing work. We should have full agricultural capacity in 3 months. And housing? 70% complete. The refugees from the station will arrive next week. Taiho grinned. Can you believe we're actually doing this? Minho watched Valera across the settlement, speaking with Do Yun and several Netherian elders. She was smiling, really smiling, not the careful diplomatic expression she usually wore. She looked younger somehow, less burdened. Yeah, Minho said. I can believe it. That evening, there was a celebration. The colonists gathered in the largest completed building for a shared meal. Beings from different species sat together, sharing food and stories. Someone started playing Netherian music, and several humans attempted to dance to the unfamiliar rhythm, causing much laughter. Minho found Valera on the building's balcony, looking out over the settlement. The twin moons cast silver light across the landscape. You should be inside celebrating, Minho said. This is your achievement. Our achievement, Valera corrected. None of this would exist without you. I just opened a door. You're the one who stepped through it. Valera turned to face him. The moonlight made her pale skin seem to glow. Do you remember what I said when you first volunteered? That I expected you to regret it very soon? I remember. I was wrong. You have never once regretted it, have you? Not for a second. Even when you were attacked? When you almost died? Especially not then. Minho stepped closer. Valera, what we've built here, it matters. These people have hope now. They have a future. How could I regret being part of that? Valera reached up and touched his face gently. Over the past months, the gesture had become familiar, comfortable. Right. I have not felt hope like this since before the war, she said softly. I had forgotten what it felt like to imagine tomorrow with joy instead of dread. Get used to it. We have a lot of tomorrows ahead of us. Yes, Valera agreed. We do. Inside the building, someone called for Minho and Valera to join a toast. They returned to the celebration together, moving naturally side by side. As Minho raised his glass along with dozens of others, he looked around the room at the impossible gathering. Species that had been enemies now working together, refugees finding home, hope blooming where there had been only despair. Hana had arrived that afternoon to check on the colony's progress. She caught Minho's eye across the room and raised her glass with a knowing smile. Taiho was teaching Netherian children a human card game, butchering the rules completely but making them laugh anyway. Do-hyun sat with a lumen scientist, discussing genetic research with animated gestures. To new beginnings, someone shouted, and everyone echoed the sentiment. As the celebration continued, Valera leaned close to Minho. I never thanked you properly. For volunteering, for staying, for believing when no one else would. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Because of you, my people have a future. Because of you, I learned to hope again. Her violet eyes shone with emotion. Because of you, I am no longer alone. Minho took her hand. You'll never be alone again. That's a promise. Promises are easy to make. Then watch me keep it. 3 years later, the colony had grown into a small city. 5 more Netherian settlements had been established on different worlds. The population was growing, not just from gathering scattered refugees, but from new births. Netherian children were being born into a world where they were welcomed, not feared. The galactic community's relationship with the Netherians had transformed completely. Their medical technology was now highly sought after. Their artists were gaining recognition. Their philosophers were invited to speak at academic gatherings. The war was still remembered, but it no longer defined them. Minho served as the chief liaison, traveling between settlements and coordinating with various species. It was exhausting work, but deeply fulfilling. He had learned to speak Netherian fluently. He had made friends among a dozen different species. He had become something more than a diplomat. He had become a bridge builder, and Valira had become more than a partner. They sat together in the garden Minho had helped design, a blend of earth plants and Netherian flowers that somehow thrived together. The purple sky was darkening into evening. Valira leaned against him, comfortable in a way that had taken years to develop. "Do you remember the summit?" she asked. "When everyone found partners except me?" "Of course. I thought I was destined to be alone forever. I had accepted it." She turned to look at him. And then one stubborn human volunteered. "Best decision I ever made." "You cannot know that." "Yes, I can. Look at everything we've built. Look at what we've accomplished together." Minho gestured at the thriving settlement visible beyond the garden. "This is more than I ever dreamed of achieving." Valira smiled, the genuine unguarded smile she only showed him. "I love you, you know. I do not think I have ever said it properly." Minho's heart swelled. They had never put a name to what they had become. Their bond had evolved beyond traditional categories. Not quite romance in the human sense, but deeper than friendship, something uniquely their own. "I love you too," he said, "in whatever way we define it." "In every way that matters," Valira agreed. They sat together as the stars began to appear in the purple sky. Around them, the city hummed with life. Netherians and humans and dozens of other species living and working together, building something new, something beautiful. In the distance, children's laughter echoed through the streets. The sound made Valira smile. "My people used to tell a story," she said quietly, "about the darkest night giving way to unexpected dawn. I never believed it until now. And now? Now I believe in dawns. I believe in second chances. I believe in stubborn humans who volunteer when no one else will." She took his hand. "I believe in us." Minho looked at her. This ancient queen who had survived so much, who had carried the weight of a dying species, who had learned to hope again. He thought about the frightened man he had been 3 years ago, standing before her chamber door, not knowing what would come next. He would make that choice again. 1,000 times over, he would make that choice. Because everyone deserved a partner. Everyone deserved a chance. And sometimes one person volunteering to stand beside someone alone could change everything. "So do I," Minho said. "I believe in us too." Above them, the stars shone bright, and the future stretched out full of possibilities they would build together. One day, one choice, one partnership at a time. And in a galaxy that had once been divided by fear, 2 beings from different worlds sat together in a garden, holding hands, and dreamed of tomorrow.